Hello and welcome back to the Gold Newsletter. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the Edge Junior Mining Guy on Twitter, and together with Brien Lundin, I'm the host of this channel, and I'm extremely excited to be here today because we got a company introduction lined up for you today. It's a company you might have heard of before because it's been around for a while. It's Bonterra Resources, and I'm really excited to have the executive chairman join me because there's a lot of activity happening in the Abitibi, and Bonterra is part of that activity because they've got a new joint venture partner. It's Goldfields. You might have heard about that over $2 billion transaction when they bought Osisko Mining, and now things are heating up in the Abitibi in Quebec. It was Agnico Eagle's playground for the longest time, and I'm really curious how the Goldfields transaction is shaking things up. And I'm going to ask Cesar that in a few short seconds. Before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously, reach a wider audience, and it helps us spread the message, especially when you're already an investor in this company. Now, without much further ado, Cesar, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Gold Newsletter Show.
Thanks for having me, Kai.
Yeah, really looking forward to this discussion because I've heard about Bonterra for the longest time, and you guys got a colorful history. And maybe we'll start with an introduction because it's the first time on the channel. Let's catch everybody up. Who and what is Bonterra? Give us a quick overview here, please, Cesar.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the Abitibi. Bonterra has two land packages in the Abitibi. One, which is in part of a JV, formerly with Osisko Mining, soon to be Goldfields. We called that the Urban Berry land package. It's now called Phoenix. 22,500 hectares, two deposits, Berry and Gladiator, combined about 3 million ounces of gold. One has an open pit, small open pit that goes underground. The other is just underground. And then to the north, about 110 kilometers driving distance to the north, we have what we call Demeriville. That's a slightly larger land package, around 25,000 hectares, where we have a mill that was last used in 2020. And it's an 800 ton per day mill with the opportunity to expand it. We're in the process of permitting that. There are small resources there. There was historical production there of around 350,000 ounces. This used to be two companies, Metanor and Bonterra. They merged in 2018, 2019. A lot of history, as you mentioned, in a relatively new camp within the Abitibi, the Urban Berry camp, that caught the eye of some very skilled mining explorationists and operators in Quebec, the Osisko group. So after they developed one of the world's largest gold mines in Malartic, they moved up here to explore the Windfall Gold Project, which neighbors the Berry and Gladiator deposits. That's what's part of the JV. That's what caught the eye of Goldfields, and that really brought some renewed attention to this camp, which is one of the youngest camps within the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, discovered around the early 2000s, now has 10 million ounces between those three deposits. Windfall is about 7, and then we have 2 at about 1.5 million each. So that is Bonterra in a nutshell. I hope I didn't go too fast, Kai.
No, that was great, and perfect timing as well, because I like a quick introduction, quick overview. We'll definitely get to some of the details, because I'm going to ask you a bit more about that joint venture, formerly with Osisko, now with Goldfields, in a second. But just to get everybody on the same page here, capital structure, we have to talk about it. How many shares outstanding, warrants, options, but also what's the cash position there, Cesar?
Sure. 163 million issued and outstanding. We did a financing in May. We have 10.5 million options at an 85-cent average strike. The stock's trading around 25 cents, so pretty far out of the money. Warrants, 32 million, and those have an average strike at around 31 cents. All of those came from the financing. So fully diluted about 205 million, and cash position as of today, it's around 4 million Canadian. No
Perfect.
debt.
No debt. That's important. I don't like seeing junior explorers or junior miners with debt on the balance sheet. That does not make any sense. So I'm glad you don't have any.
Yeah, me too.
I have to follow up on the warrants because I just looked at the share price and the chart, and it seems like it bounced off the 30-cent mark a little bit, and you got warrants at 31 cents. Who owns those warrants?
Those all came from the financing. So, the gold price has been performing as predicted by many of us. Super excited about that. The junior gold market, however, has not caught a bid yet. It's starting to. You're starting to see signs of that. But when we financed in May, the terms were what they needed to be to get the deal done, and that came with a full warrant. out for 4 years. I participated on the deal. It was such a good deal. But those were the terms. That's where we could raise money at, and that's what we did. And so that's where those warrants all came from. Some of those are locked away. We have a shareholder, the largest shareholder at 20%, Wexford Capital, where I used to work. They own, like I said, 20%. They got 20% of the deal. They own warrants. They haven't sold any shares since they got involved with the predecessor company, Metanor, in 2017. We have other shareholders like that are, long-term in nature, but we do have warrants now as a result of that transaction.
No, fair enough. Like it's also a form of financing. You don't have to go out to the market. If you do well, money might come in, and you don't have to necessarily ask for it. So
Yeah.
it can be an advantage, right? No, fantastic. You mentioned Wexford. I see Agnico Eagle is also a shareholder, and I brought up Agnico Eagle in my intro. How big is the position there, and what's the relationship with Agnico?
So Agnico's position is down to around 5%. They were a much larger investor, which actually came in through the acquisition of Kirkland. So Kirkland Lake made the placement into Bonterra. They were very interested in Gladiator, and obviously we know that Agnico acquired Kirkland Lake. So that is how they ended up on the register. They had a participation right. We communicate with them. You mentioned that they own the Abitibi, which is true, although there's some competitive tension with this new big player coming in. But they own stakes in a bunch of junior companies throughout the Abitibi.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like Cartier Resources, a company we're close with, they own like 15% there, and there's other names as well. Absolutely. No. Let's talk Phoenix, because I think that's a really interesting project, and I'm really curious how the dynamic is changing now. And maybe we'll start with the beginning. Like Osisko is the original joint venture partner, and you mentioned it, Windfall is fairly close, but it runs a bit through the reasoning. Why was Osisko interested in it? Why did they enter that joint venture deal? And what were they trying to get out of it?
Absolutely. We did the deal in 2023. It was announced, I believe, in September. It closed in November. If you remember, Osisko and Goldfields also did a JV earlier in the year. I think it was around May of 23. We saw that. We saw it as a better alternative, especially with our stock trading at all-time lows at that point, down to 16 cents, where if we wanted to finance and raise that kind of capital to explore our land package, it would have been extremely dilutive. And also, partnering with Osisko, these guys know how to drill. The deepest drill hole in Canada is part of the exploration program at Windfall. They drilled over 2 million meters, and they have a good handle on the camp. When we met with them to discuss a JV, they had a very specific theory that they wanted to test, or target. That was a better word for our industry. They had a target at Moss, which is only 5 kilometers from Windfall, where they thought there was high-grade mineralization at depth, similar to what they have at Lynx. The Lynx zone within the Windfall Gold Project is the highest grade zone, and they've done a couple bulk samples there, about half an ounce, 2 ounces, 5,000 tons each, just really high grade, carries the project, elevates the grade profile of the project, and they have had a theory about another Lynx type zone with it, at depth at Moss. We'd scratched the surface. We'd only drilled down to 200 meters. They have drilled holes now down to 800 meters plus vertical distance, and they found Lynx type mineralization, which is super exciting for me. It's in our presentation. We put out press releases regarding this. The market doesn't seem to appreciate that, but that was one of the reasons why, number one, it was less dilutive, gave us access to 35 million Canadian dollars. At the time, our market cap was 20 million Canadian dollars. And so that was for a 70% interest in just the Urban Barry land package. Everything to the north remains 100% owned, the mill, all that land. And so it was attractive from that standpoint, but it was also attractive because now we have the Osisko team, this very skilled, credible team that are experts at deep drilling, that know the deposits and the structures up here, and they had a theory. They wanted to test a target, and we let them do it, and the results, they got good results. They found what they were looking for, and it's just the beginning of that, by the way. If you look at those holes, you'll say, "Oh, this is interesting, Cesar," but this a deposit it does not make. Correct, but it's the start.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for the clarification and running us through that story a little bit. Now, of course, coming to the present, the deal with Osisko and Goldfields closes at the end of October, I believe. Have you received any indication how they're planning to proceed with the with a joint venture? Was there a clause potentially in the contract with Osisko that might break the deal if there's a takeover or anything? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything. I'm just speculating here. Like, what will the relationship look like, in the future there?
So our relationship was with Osisko, and we have a good relationship with them. Goldfields is a new relationship, but one that we're very excited to start building. There has been an email exchange, on the back of the transaction, but what we know about Goldfields' view of our land package is actually public knowledge. When they announced the acquisition in the press release, they had a section called rationale or strategic rationale. And in there, you will find a quote, or it's not a quote, a statement that says, that mentions Bonterra Resources specifically. It mentions the JV, and it uses the term near mine exploration potential. That is what they are calling this land package. We have 2 deposits. There are plenty of targets in and around Windfall. There's a massive land package that they're getting with Osisko, but there are only 2 deposits that have resources on them outside of Windfall, and that's Berry and Gladiator. Berry actually has a mining license. If you wanted to mine it today, you could. There is a permit to do that. Those things take a lot of time, and that's already there. So, can I tell you with absolute certainty what Goldfields is going to do? No. Their words are in a public document. You can look it up for yourself. Near mine exploration potential makes all the sense in the world to continue on with the JV. And if they don't, I get my assets back in the raging gold bull market, and that would also be an amazing alternative. But I doubt that's going to happen. We already heard from the Osisko team that budgets are being prepared for the next round of drilling. They drilled aggressively in the first 7 months of the JV, 60,000 meters, 37,000 of which were at Moss. And we'll see what Goldfields wants to do, but I doubt that they would abandon the JV. And if they do, we get our assets back, which is not such a bad outcome.
It could be way worse, right? And I have the Goldfields transaction presentation open, and it includes the Windfall Mining Group and the Bonterra earn-in option as part of their district scale land package in Canada.
Yeah, so, and they have a big red circle around our land. So, if they weren't so interested, I don't think they would have highlighted in that fashion.
Yeah. What's your market cap again right now?
we're hanging out at around 40 million Canadian dollars.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to put words in your mouth or insinuate anything that doesn't make any sense, but $40 million, and you're being mentioned by the majors. It seems to be a very clear signal. The question is, though, what are they going to do with the Bachelor Mill? Like, how would that fit in? And we have to talk about Bachelor and like what's the overall strategy for that for the existing infrastructure that you have, and how could you feed your mill? What are you trying to permit to? Run us a bit through the rationale of your almost secondary asset here.
Yeah. So going back to the history, Bonterra was 2 companies. One was a mining company. The other was an exploration company. They had land packages that were right next to each other down south. Berry and Gladiator, those were 2 separate companies. So it made sense to merge, to consolidate that. But the north, where the historical mining was, that has had very little regional exploration. 90% of all the drilling was in and around Bachelor and Maroy, the 2 deposits that have resources. Bachelor was a historic mine. Maroy was the future where the new mining was going to be. With gold prices where they were, with the inability to finance, we kind of put that on hold and focused more on the south, where Windfall was getting a lot of attention and where we had these 2 high grade deposits. And so that's what we did. And there was a point not too long ago where we brought in one of the best operators of mid-size assets in the Abitibi, and Marc-Andre Pelletier, he was the COO of Westdome. He had doubled production at Eagle. He had taken Kiena into production from a PEA to a PFS to producing gold. And we wanted him to do the same at Bonterra. We were very excited about that. He joined January of 22. And then, gold was flat, but costs went to the roof. And the margin that we had, was not there. We were planning to start with an open pit at Barry, truck it up to the mill. Again, 110 kilometers, not a short haul, but one that's feasible and had been done before, actually. In 0809, Metanor had trucked ore from that open pit up to the mine. That's why it has a mining lease. That's why there's a pit there. And so we were planning to restart that, do more engineering and drilling work on the underground, transition to underground. At the same time, drill out Gladiator, put in a ramp, and then have that for the future. But all those plans were put on hold when costs, especially in the Abitibi, went up and gold didn't respond. That has changed now, but that was over 2 years ago and before the JV. So the mill is very important. It probably is not important to Goldfields, to Osisko. They're building a brand new state-of-the-art mill, 3,400 tons per day, with capacity to potentially go higher. It's going to be right there in and around the deposits that are large. So the northern land package is not tied up in the JV. We are doing drilling there right now between 4,000 and 6,000 meters. We're 1,000 meters already into the program, and we're focusing on areas that have never been looked at. In Q4, I shouldn't say looked at, drilled, because we did look at them in Q4 of last year. We did a bunch of geophysics, and we did some regional drilling, and we're following up on that now. And those assets are owned 100% by us. We find something there, and it's mineable. We have a mine operator, we have a mill, which can be turned back on, which can be upgraded. And that's a whole other story. The more I think about it, Bonterra is really going back to being these two companies. We've got the JV, which is taken care of, and there's still money to be spent there to continue to drill. And then we have what we have in the north with all the infrastructure in the world. And, if this were a standalone company on its own, and this gold market might even have the same market cap as what we have today for both. It's just, you've seen this before, Kai. This is not a new story, generally speaking. And, I hope that it ends the same way. A bunch of value comes back into the market. It accretes to our favor. And, we can look back and think about these days that were not so good, but the future is very bright.
Oh, absolutely. 2660 gold price. I think we can all see where things are headed. It's fingers crossed, of course, and knock on wood, right? But what does the future look like for Bonterra? I'm really curious because Abitibi, there's a ton of junior exploration companies, and I keep coming back to something Sean Boyd said a while ago. It's like almost 10 years ago. He wants to see more consolidation amongst the juniors because I think he was a bit tired, or is a bit tired, to keep buying like a project that has 500,000 here, 500,000 ounces there, or 600,000 ounces there. So he wants a bit of sector consolidation, and we're still not in a rosy financing environment. It's looking better. You mentioned it. I think it's the financing window slowly opening, and we're entering a better financing environment here. But do you have sector consolidation on the radar? You're in the Abitibi. There's a ton of projects. Is that something you've looked at all?
Well, our neighbor just got consolidated, and people can speculate as to what will happen with us, but it's tough to be the consolidator when you're so cheap. So right now, it's why we're on this chat. Why we're doing this is we're trying to get the story out. We're trying to get new shareholders into Bonterra to give us the valuation we need to have more options. There's going to be drilling. There's been a tremendous amount of drilling, 60,000 meters in 7 months. That's not being appreciated by the market. There's a new discovery, a new high-grade discovery, 5 kilometers from a mill that will have a world-class mine by a world-class mining operator. It's just, there's so much I need to get out and for people to start giving us proper value for. There's so much that I own already in this company that is so valuable. I know there are other stories out there, and they're great, but I'm buying Bonterra. I'm not buying them. In fact, this morning I bought another 122,000 and a half shares because we're just so damn cheap.
No, no, it makes sense. I get it. It's like a lot of companies are beaten down in the Abitibi, and we're all waiting for more our day in the sunshine, right? But let's talk about it. Like, what does success look like for you? Like, if you were to run through the business plan for Bonterra, like what's on the last page when you talk about success? Like, what maybe potential exit or so? What does that look like for you? Do you want to take Bonterra back into production yourself, Caesar?
So that was the plan in 22. And we brought in Marc Andre, who is still with the company, still has that same experience, which was so successful in the 5 years he was at Westdome, where the stock went up 400% versus the GDXJ, which was flat. This was before gold really started going again, and they created a lot of value there. So we have him, which a lot of companies want to do that and have visions to do that. But if you don't have the individual that can do it, forget about it. You might have the assets, you might have the capital, you don't have the person. You need to have all three, the trinity, if you will. And we have the individual, so we got that. The JV is something that's very strategic. You can just look at a land map. It's sandwiched in between what used to be Osisko is now Goldfields. That will take care of itself. And then what's in the north? Yeah, we're drilling now, and we're drilling 10, 15 kilometers from the mill. If we find something, we will aggressively chase it. We will determine whether it is mineable at the right time. There's a lot of steps in between drilling 2, 3 discovery holes and then production. There's resource statements, there's PEAs, PFSs, permitting, but we have a lot of the fundamental things that you need to be able to do that. We've got the gold price, the wind in our backs. So, success of Bonterra is multi-pronged. It's realizing full value for our JV stake, and it's seeing if we have anything worth mining up north where we have the individual to do it, we have the infrastructure to do it. We have the potential with, there was a mine that there's an old saying, especially in the Abitibi, you find your next mine in the shadow of your current,
Head frame. I think
head
the
frame.
shadow of the head frame, I think, is the quote. I don't know who said it, by the way, but
And Kai, I'm waiting for a company to call themselves that, like head frame gold or something, But we've got a lot of things going on. This was a company that had a market cap that was multiple times higher than it is today. We had a downturn and we're coming out of it, and I'm very excited about the future. I think the future is bright, as I said before.
yeah, no, fantastic. $4 million in the bank, Caesar. You said you're drilling. Run us a bit through that drill program, and then we'll put a bow around it. But run us through that, and what are you chasing? What are the goals for this campaign?
So, as I said earlier, 4,000 to 6,000 meters, and on our 100% owned package, which is Demeriville, within 10 to 15 kilometers from the mill. We're following up on results from geophysics, both ground and aerial, that were done in the fourth quarter. Drill at 15,000 meters that was done in the fourth quarter. We brought in a world-class geologist, Professor Jabrak, Dr. Jabrak, who, there's another saying in mining where you bring in a different geologist, you get different results, you get a different project. And so I know there's no monopoly on good ideas. Our board has connections to people like Dr. Jabrak that we thought, why not? There's no pride in authorship here. Let's bring in a guy, give a completely fresh look. And he's directing, or, on a high level, has directed some of these targets that we're going after. We'll have results on that out soon. We're in Quebec, which has a wonderful structure for exploration drilling to promote it, called flow through. We're able to do charity flow through with premiums north of 80%. So that was part of the financing in May. That money has to be allocated to exploration. So we're using those funds. And that's a market that's easier to tap into than the traditional hard dollar money market. So if we find something, we need to follow up on it. There's the ability to do that to reduce the dilution going forward.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I love Quebec flow through, by the way. The premiums are crazy. So really,
Yeah.
definitely a big advantage for that jurisdiction. Caesar, what are some of the next press releases we can be looking forward to? Obviously, drill results. What else?
We'll congratulate Goldfields once they close on Osisko. That looks like it's going through, as you said, by the end of October. I think the vote's the 17th, and so it'll close shortly thereafter. Drilling to the north. Hopefully there is a press release on the restart of drilling on our JV. We have to talk to Goldfields and see what they plan to do. But that's the bulk of it. We just added a director, Leslie, who we've been working with for a while now, and she is now formally on our board. She brings a new perspective because she has traditionally not been part of the mining industry. She was a Bombardier for a long time, but if you look at our roster, if you look at our assets, we punch way above our weight. So we just need to gain some weight here. We need the market to realize some of this value that's inside this company.
No, fantastic. Cesar, really appreciate you taking the time running us through the story. Really exciting things happening in the Abitibi. I'm personally also quite excited because it was a long time. It was overdue for a long time that Agnico Eagle gets its cage rattled and maybe steps up its game in the Abitibi, quite honestly. Like they've been trying to scare away everybody, but I don't think that'll work much longer. So I'm curious how that dynamic unfolds and what that's going to look like in 12 months' time. Really curious what that landscape will look like. Cesar, thank you so much for joining us here on the Gold Newsletter, and everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope you found this informative. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. We do want to hear from you, and share this video with your friends, especially when you're an investor. That way you can update everybody, and that's the whole point. We're trying to educate and trying to share interesting investment stories. This is, of course, not investment advice. Read the disclaimer, and we want to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter channel. Thank you so much.